Hey everyone, it's Sunday, April 14th, 2019, and this is the Product Mentor Talk. Today we're joined by one of our mentors to lead an amazing talk. I'm just going to briefly introduce the format. So the Product Mentor program, for those of you who don't know, who aren't in it, is a really great experience and opportunity for successful product leaders to operate as mentors to a community of mentees who are generally product managers or aspiring product managers earlier in their career. And those two forces kind of come together and help accelerate product careers and help create better product people. I am Nis Fromm, the co-founder of a company called Alpha. We're an on-demand insights platform, and we're based in New York City. I am also the moderator of today's talks. So I will be introducing each of the speakers and then handling any Q&A throughout the process. And with all that said, let me hand it off to our speaker.
Yeah, so my talk is about kind of how to integrate yourself into a team and kind of ultimately build trust and rapport. So I put together a little presentation here. So I'll share the screen now. Can everybody see it? So,
yep.
Okay. Cool. So I think that, as a product manager, one of the first things I've learned is how important it is for people to feel like they trust you, like they believe in what you're talking to them about. When it comes to priorities, whether it's about what's being built, why it's being built, who decided how it should be built, and so on. So this is what this talk's about. A little bit about myself. I've been now in product management for over 12 years. I have a variety of experience, including finance, health, advertising, social apps. I've been lucky enough to have been able to lead different companies from an idea to the actual first version, all the way up to trying to expand it operationally. Most recently, I've had a couple of good experiences with some startups that I've been part of. One of our latest ones is an art investment platform named Masterworks, which lets you buy shares of art. We've been around for about 1.5 years, still waiting kind of for final regulatory approval, but we've had a lot of good initial interest. Previous to that, led a fintech startup, which let your business get paid daily for your sales from the previous day. And yeah, so I'm a very strong advocate for process that drives efficiency, but process that kind of is in the background. So I think a lot of people are afraid of anyone that says they like process because they feel like it'll dominate how things are done. I actually believe process can be in the background, make sure everything runs well. Yeah, so kind of a quick summary of what I'll be covering. First of all, why it's important, and then the different sections that I have learned from my various experience with different teams and different types of people, including the outlined ones here. So for me, I think that a product manager, due to the nature of the role, you're not an individual contributor often, you're not able to kind of deliver things that people can see. So I think that with building trust and building this rapport with your team, one, you truly cannot be efficient because everything's kind of a struggle. And I think all of us may have worked at a company where it feels like that. A lot of the things that you do will be affected deeply by how much your team trusts you. And this includes your team, from an upward perspective, and also your engineering team or marketing or anybody like that. And I have definitely seen that a lot of product managers, whether they have the right skill set or not, are unable to kind of be successful due to kind of this lack of trust from the team, or lack of ability to get them to understand who they are as a person and why they should follow them as a leader. This is especially important for new roles. So I've seen a lot of times when somebody comes in into a new role, and of course is excited to kind of get started and excited to help fix some of the things that have been lacking, and they kind of commit a couple of things that I've seen as mistakes, right? So one of the most common ones I always see, and applies to any role, but very specifically to product management, is they kind of dismiss a lot of the efforts that have been a part of the previous team or the previous person that was in the role. And I think that's a very easy way to immediately get off to a bad start with your team, because a lot of those team members were actually a part of the efforts that were done before. And therefore, they immediately see you as a person trying to, present themselves as a savior or something like that. And that's typically a pretty bad start. I think it's also very important during your first 90 days to really kind of start to talk to all the different team members, whether, you've heard anything about them or not. I also think it's important to keep it fairly casual, because a lot of times all jobs can feel a little too formal, a little too machine-like. So I like to kind of do things that are more casual feeling or friendly. Reading all available documentation. I know documentation is one of probably the things that everybody wants to do, and a lot of companies actually do it, but then somehow when new people are onboarded or something happens, or it's just not really looked at it ever again, I think a lot of us actually end up cutting out that part due to the nature of it. The next one is kind of using the product, right? Whatever product it is, I think you need to use it. You need to see what it's like. You need to become very familiar with it. Watch people that use it on a daily basis. Observe them, see what they do. Also, in the first 90 days, I think one of the more important things is to have like little small wins, right? So typically when you join a company as a product manager, it's probably because they need somebody to kind of come in and make an immediate impact. And a lot of the things that us as product managers do are a little bit more longer term, or it could be, 3 months to build something. But you can always kind of contribute to, whether it's a customer service team or a marketing team that's been needing something done. You can always kind of insert yourself there and kind of start to earn that credibility with the team. I do think in the first 90 days, it's also important to not just focus on the direct team that you're going to work with, but it's also important to start to build relationships with leaderships in the company, other PMs if there's any there, other kind of leads of other departments like marketing and sales. Try to understand better where they come from, and what things they've been dealing with on a daily basis. Kind of one of the first tenets here of what I've done is, I think a lot of people aren't comfortable being themselves at work, right? So I think that for me, what's always worked better for myself is realize that, there's a lot of good traits that I have, some that I need to work on that aren't the best. But, one thing that I think immediately gets you people to not necessarily trust you is if they feel like you're putting on a different act than you truly are. So I think being honest about who you are, and about yourself and your way of working is really key, especially in a product manager role. I think you need to kind of be okay with that. And I think a lot of product managers I see come in there, they try to, pretend they want to know about somebody's kids or whatever it is, and it just starts to feel like, okay, you're doing the management kind of talking, which is pretty much not liked by anyone. I also think it's important for you to let people know what you stand for, right? So that can include a lot of things. So, for example, for myself, as I mentioned before, I'm a big proponent of process and making sure that things are done in an orderly manner. And I think it's something that people that get to work with me realize pretty fast, and I stick to it. And I am happy to tell people why and give them examples of why that's worked for me. I think another thing that you should definitely avoid doing is overcommitting to things, right? So if you do make any commitments to be involved in a project or help somebody with something, you got to finish. I see too many times when somebody is for a good reason wanting to help out and everything, but in reality they end up not finishing any of the things that they committed to, and that kind of makes you feel like, okay, this person's just one of these people that wants to be involved in everything and doesn't actually end up finishing anything, which is a really bad position to put yourself in. The last one I think is super important and kind kind of might sound like common sense, but there's a lot of responsibility that comes with a product management role, and that includes not being one of the people that says if something doesn't go right, like, oh well, here's a bunch of excuses. I think it's important for you to show your team, hey, I'm here to kind of like, if we do something well, then we'll give each other credit. But if it doesn't go well, like, you're also there to say, like, here's the things that I could have done better. Here's the things that went wrong, and what we could have done. But never be like, deflecting or saying like, oh well, it wasn't my fault or something like that. Another kind of additional comments on that note is, product managers are often certain types of personalities, and they're very like, sure of themselves all the time. And it's a good quality to be confident and present everything like it's the best idea. But it is important to be open-minded to other people's ideas. And this is something that I've personally had to learn to be better at, because a lot of things I present are kind of, they sound like facts and whatever. But your team does want to contribute, and so it's very important to hear people out, listen to the ideas, and actually process them and make sure. The second one is super important for me, because you always want to kind of try to have a positive attitude and have some fun, even if things aren't working as they should, or the deadlines aren't working right. Because I think on a team, it's very easy for to get down. I think we've all seen it where companies not doing well, and then everybody kind of just no longer, has any belief in it, and that's pretty bad. This last one I see fairly often as well is like, never kind of say like, oh well, the CEO wants to do this or the founder wants to do this, because the only way for you to sell ideas that come from leadership is for you to kind of sound like you're actually into the idea. Like, it doesn't mean that you necessarily agree that that's the best path. But once the decision's been made on an approach, you should always kind of get behind it and make sure the team gets behind it. And I've had really good success, especially at startups where, to be honest, a lot of the ideas they change all the time. So like, if a CEO wants to do something, you say, okay, you give them your opinion. And then if they still want to do some specific thing, then you kind of embrace it, and you have your team embrace it fully as well. I think the second one, and this is something that I've always been decent at just because of my personality, but a lot of people are not necessarily as good. So it's something that product managers should work on improving. And it's kind of a showing intent, right? So focusing on actually trying to improve something specific on a product or a company or an initiative. It's about getting people to believe that your ultimate intent is about improving the product and not your own professional growth. If you do well, this should be kind of mutually go hand in hand. But there's too many people that seem like their goal is to finish projects or do whatever to make themselves look better, and then people start to believe it's not really about making something better. And so I think that it's very important for product managers to show that, hey, look, at the end of the day, I really care about trying to make this the best product that we can have, and then we'll all kind of win. And trying to show that in a consistent way. Another good point here is, if you're trying to improve the product, you should really kind of maybe put secondary your own advancement professionally, and look to see what other people are motivated by, find their intent, because a lot of the times you'll notice that your team's going to work a lot better if everybody's motivated by the same kind of things. That's a part of like having mutual benefit, right? So again, if you truly care about making the best product, usually that aligns well with sales and whatever it is, assuming the idea has kind of a product market fit. And I think the last one, I think nobody should feel like as a product manager, you don't know what they're trying to accomplish. I think it's good to have like a clear, concise goals that are shared, so then now the team feels like, okay, we all know exactly what we're shooting for. This one is something I'm not good at, so I've never tried to show this. So a lot of people try to show like, oh, like empathy towards kind of why somebody's not either, doing well at their job or whatever it is. I think that you should only show things that you're able to kind of genuinely show. But I think that that's another part of the thing about, oh, if you don't know anything about kids, like maybe asking about kids isn't necessarily what you want to be doing, because it's not going to help you necessarily form a relationship. It's going to make it a little bit weird. So I think that it's important to only show the emotions that you feel comfortable with, so people can feel like, okay, at least this person is being genuine with me. Another thing that's really important is to, volunteer for stuff sometimes. Sometimes I do things that, I don't know, a marketing person's quote unquote supposed to do, a salesperson. It has always helped me be more valued in the company and by everyone when I volunteer to do something I happen to know how to do. Sometimes I'm the IT guy at work and whatever. I'm not IT guy, but sure, I can do it. So I'll just do it as well. The next one, I think is really important as well for product managers, especially even newer ones, is let people bother you and ask you questions that even if it's not something that maybe they should be asking you. I think it's always good to like hear those questions, and it does help you understand better, like maybe what's missing in the product or whatever the case may be. And the last one I think is important. Everybody knows it, but I hear it's still a ton of time where people don't really, give praise to the people that do stuff on an individual contributor level. Even things like saying somebody's name of an engineer that did something specifically as opposed to like the engineering team. I think all these things end up mattering because people start to believe that you do want to recognize them and have their best interest in mind. Number three is probably the main thing that people get hired for, right? So everybody, especially nowadays, thinks like, okay, if I hire a product manager, I'll be able to execute better. And this is true, but a lot of product managers come from a variety of different backgrounds. So it doesn't necessarily mean that that's something that they're the best at. So it's something that you should definitely focus on to try to gain that trust and again build that rapport and with your team. One of the best ways that I have found is look to not necessarily say how can I get you guys to go faster if it's a development team, but try to find the actual bottlenecks, right? So a lot of the times you'll see that by talking to people, you find out that, oh, well, actually the stakeholder is always like changing their mind or doing something, or the CEO is doing this and that. I think that if you start to show that you can add value by getting rid of bottlenecks, that might be one of the quickest ways for people to say, okay, like, hey, cool, like, I trust you. I want you to be part of the team, especially engineers. I think we all work with engineers that, to be honest, sometimes they don't think you do a lot of things, right? Because you're not an individual contributor, but for them, if you take away their pain of like somebody preventing them from working, that's a huge win. The second one I think is very important, and I always tell any young product manager, become an expert in something, like whether it's the field that you're working on, or even things like being able to test something on a browser. Too many people, I think, in product don't have like some basic kind of like skills of like QA. I think QA is like a pretty big thing nowadays, especially with like the focus on UX and all these user experience designs. A lot of it is going to require somebody to know how to test it, and if you require a QA team, or you rely on your developers to test, it's usually not a great sign. And also they also will love you a lot more if you're able to kind of test some of the stuff that they do. They'll give you quicker output, and then you can kind of like please everyone on the team by having a lot more things going on. The next one, and this is very specific to execution, is you got to play to your strengths. So if you're more technical, work, be more technical. If you're better at like things like marketing or branding or something like that, do kind of lean on that part more. And you still need to have a little bit of both, but really you want to be super strong at one thing. Like people will know you, like, okay, this guy's really good at marketing stuff. So like that's a good trait to have as a product person at any company. The last one is just kind of touching base on the other thing, which is just contribute. Sometimes there's a lot of little things that you can do. If somebody says, oh, I wish we could do something, you say, hey, I want to look into it, try to get it done. It's a report, maybe you can do it. Maybe you can empower it to be done outside of like whatever the sprint. A lot of those little things go a long way in getting people to really enjoy working with you and trusting you. Here's a couple of like important things for people that I think sound like common sense, but if you analyze kind of your behavior, you'll sometimes notice that you do these. And it's very subtle sometimes, right? So taking credit is one of them that's fairly subtle, right? So a lot of the time, CEO will want to interact with a product person or UX person or something like that. And if something is like a good release, they'll say, oh, like, thanks for empowering this. And, instead of just saying, okay, like, I think it's always a good idea to say, well, here's kind of the people that work on it and, why they should be commended. Maybe they worked extra hours. Maybe they did something extra. The next one, I think, to be perfectly honest, I've done sometimes, like, people don't always react well, and this could be like facial expressions or just the way you reply to a question. So that's something to really be careful of, especially in person when you're talking to people, and even on video hangouts, right? On video hangouts, maybe you don't know the people as well. So then if they see you react a certain way, they may not want to ask you anymore. Same thing with the next one. I think it's easy to blame whatever, like, well, the engineering team did this, or the past marketing team did this. I actually never find that to be beneficial. I mean, I think if you focus on the current state of things and how you guys can improve it, per person trying to decide what happened in the past. Again, I already touched on this before, but deflecting if something doesn't go well and kind of not taking responsibility is not a great way, and doesn't create like a team mentality of just taking on challenges. Next one is avoiding kind of conflict. I think it's fine to have conflict, or issues that come up, even disagreements, and acknowledging them and kind of working through them in a manner that is ultimately resolved is a better way than kind of like saying, well, no, that guy set the goal, so I'm not going to tell him anything, or whatever the case is, or this person is not happy or something. The next one is super related to that one too, but having an environment where people feel like there's layers of communication that is unknown to them is always a bad idea. So I always try to let my team know, whether it's a new engineer or new intern, like, I want them to know like what's going on. It's like, oh, we've been discussing these approaches, these initiatives. So everybody kind of has from the CEO down, like, everybody has an idea. And obviously this works a lot better. The company is smaller, but to a certain extent, you can accomplish this with the latest approaches of people building smaller teams. So at least within your team, and you can have that scenario. The last one applies more to like when you're dealing with people that are, on your other teams, like whether it's customer service, sales. I think that people should never overuse the use of jargon and things like that. That often ends up happening. Oops, sorry. And so a lot of people end up doing that a little bit too much, and I think we're all guilty of that at times. But we should all avoid that. I think everything should be, especially in the latest products in today's world, everything should be understandable by everyone. And I always get a lot of good reaction from like sales team where they're like, "Oh, cool, you took the time to explain to me what cryptocurrency is," because it can sound like alien speak. The last one, I think, ultimately is what we're all measured on as product managers, and that's results. And results doesn't always mean that the company is going to be ultimately successful. I think the benefit of kind of the new approaches to building companies is that you realize that at the end of the day, you're trying to find a certain product market fit, and even once you do, scaling that can be difficult, and sometimes it doesn't actually end up in ultimate whatever that would be called, sales success or anything like that. But I've had a good amount of what I would call success with teams that I've worked on, even though the product itself didn't end up working out. And that's based on, having this mentality of like, hey, I expect us to like do well and, give ourselves the best chance to get these results. And I think having a positive attitude, like the first one I mentioned here, is it does help people become more confident and say, okay, cool, like this person really believes in this and they're going to do their best and to give us the best chance to win. And I think that ends up propagating down to the team, and everybody starts to have that confidence. The next one is related. Sometimes things don't go the way you want, and there's a lot of interruptions, bugs, or whatever. But just like when it comes to like a race or something like that, from a sports perspective, you got to finish strong. You can't those little quitting kind of at the end or dragging it along definitely has an impact later. So I think that you as a leader of the team have to make sure that everybody finishes well. The next one people say they do a lot, but I think that it's difficult to actually do. So like this includes things like retrospectives and trying to present results to other teams or leadership. I think this is one of the things that all product managers should focus on doing better is communicating results clearly to their own team and to people that they work with or for, and then taking that and making actionable things for the last point, which is how do you actually say you learned something from the last time, and it's more than just saying it or, oh, that didn't work, but we learned a lot. You have to quantify that, write out what that means, and have actionable things that say this is what we'll try next time, and see how it takes us, see if it improves. This next section is about soft skills, and I think that this is one of my personal ones that I've worked on over the years. I think that sometimes as a person that's used to kind of leading things or being more assertive, I do have this issue about listening better, right? So I need to sometimes hear out what people are saying before I already have a better idea or I already know how to do it. I already know what they're trying to say. I think that this is super important, and we all need to work on a little bit. I think especially in tech and product management. The next one, it's been something that has come a little bit natural to me, but I think it doesn't always come natural to people. So I think trying to learn something about your team members on a personal level is really important. I think most of us, have something in common, whether it's music, whether it's food. I think that it's important to try to make that effort to get to know someone on a personal level. And again, it shouldn't be about like, just saying how their weekend was. I think that those can sometimes be awkward conversations. But I found that, hey, like a lot of people like the same kind of music I like, and that really starts to help me get beyond this concept of us working together. It actually, has led to me having a good amount of friends that I've worked with over the years and different teams. So I think that's pretty important, and I think it's something that should be fun to do as well. So I think it's fun to have that. And I think when big companies want to do a startup culture, a lot of the times that's really what they're referring to, which is like people that like each other tend to work harder with each other, for each other, and ultimately have better chances at success. The next one, I think I have definitely seen in some product managers, which is lacking attention to detail. I think that when it comes to a role like product manager, it's pretty important to have everything kind of buttoned up. And you can lose confidence from a lot of different parts of the company as a product manager. So this is actually super important compared to other roles, even because it's not just engineering or marketing or sales. Like it's all of them. So if any of these people notice that you're not really buttoned up, like they'll be like, yeah, that person doesn't really know what they're talking about. I think the next one is a good one as far as like not just sales, but we're always constantly negotiating in some way as a product manager, whether it's about deadlines or scope or something. So I think that some people say they don't like negotiating, but as a product manager, you more or less have to. So I think it's good to embrace it and think of it differently than a sales negotiation. But it is like some kind of back and forth that you have to be good at. Good at having alternatives or compromises and things like that. And being able to do that, for example, concrete example is if your dev team tells you, well, this product feature that the sales team wants will take 3 weeks. Well, we want it to take less. So like going back and forth, and then successfully getting the scope down from the sales team, for the dev team to think, oh yeah, now we can do it in 1 week, goes a long way in getting the trust from both sides of that, because they'll be like, okay, cool, the sales team gets something they need, and then the engineering team feels that they can have something they can deliver on. So that's a really good skill to have. The last one I think is especially great at startups, right? So like often you're the first product manager, and you'll probably be the first product or the only product manager for a while. So you just kind of work on your resourcefulness, right? So a lot of the things that I personally that I know now or learned, I didn't know anything about them. So when people say like, oh, how do I do this? I just research it. I just do like very specific, research on Google or whatever it is. I ask some friends. I do a lot of things, but people start to really kind of feel like, okay, I can ask this person anything if they know I can figure it out, or if we're like, hey, we're looking for some software that does this. I'm like, all right, I'll look into it. I think that goes a super long way to getting your team to trust you, and everybody feeling like, okay, this person's like integral to the company and to our team, because they can figure out things that are beyond quote unquote, your skill set and things like that. Yeah, so I mean, I think it's just general parting thoughts, and again, a lot of the stuff would seemingly be common sense, but I think it's good to very specifically and methodically work on it, from your professional perspective and even as yourself. But my parting thoughts and things that I always stick to for myself is I got to be myself, and that doesn't mean that sometimes there's things that aren't the best quality of traits, but acknowledging even that and saying, hey, I'm working on this, or acknowledging when you don't react a certain way that you should have to the people that you work with is really important. Communication, again, as it relates to not only professional, but just talking to people and just becoming somebody that they could potentially even be friends with is super important, and it will definitely help contribute to people trusting you on your team. And then the last one is, being able to show that you're truly kind of this impartial person that isn't just super biased towards one side or the other, and not about yourself. And it's really about the product. Allows you the freedom to kind of give a lot of opinions that may be typically polarizing or controversial, but really when people just believe like, hey, like with this person on my team, we're gonna do the best possible version of the product and have the most high chance of success to all be successful, then people kind of like are able to kind of take your opinions in a better way. They don't take it like personal. They don't have like emotions towards it, which I think is good overall for tech products especially. But yeah, that is my final thought on that.
Thanks, Alberto. Yeah, that was really great. Thank you. We've got 2 questions. First is from Patrick. You had a slide on success and communicating success, and he asked, what methods have you used to communicate success that worked for you and your teams in the context of building rapport?
Yeah. So that's a good question. I mean, I think that, visuals are always a nice way to show success, right? So for me, I've learned to use a variety of tools, whether it's like OmniGraffle or something like that, to show like, hey, look, here's what we were at, 6 months ago, stats included, right? So like you say, hey, 50% of people onboarded in, let's say, 3 days or more. And then I show like, today, like average customer gets onboarded in 1 to 2 days. And I think that that's always a good way to communicate kind of like, success. And then you kind of can show the details of like, how do we do that? How do we accomplish that, and showing kind of the different phases of the process.
Great. And then the second question is mine. It's kind of I guess maybe open-ended, but have you found any like interesting ways to quantify whether or not you have rapport with other? Is it they just say yes to everything you say, or how do you know when you have rapport or when you don't have rapport and might need to address an issue?
I think the best way that I found to quantify is, and this sounds very silly, but in Slack, especially all these communications, like when people are able to make jokes and kind of have this banter, even though we're all working really hard. I think that's always been like a good test for me. Like there's a bunch of teams that I've seen, kind of observed, and it's like, it's all very like professional. So for me, you know, other people have kind of validated it by saying like, oh, you guys seem to have fun in the dev channel, right? Like people from marketing will tell me like, hey, I want to join the dev channel. Like you guys are sharing this, that, like, so I think that a good way to kind of quantify that is to see like, again, it goes beyond work. Like you're kind of just chit-chatting. And then of course, this is like the ultimate thing of people saying like, oh, I go to work, but I'm not really like quote unquote working. So I think that I've always kind of tried to keep an eye out on like, I feel like somebody's not partaking, like, hey, like I try to figure out, ooh, maybe something's uncomfortable for them, or you know, somebody's making them feel like that.
That makes sense. And then we have one more question from Sharon. What approaches have you found successful in helping your team level up those soft skills that you talked a lot about?
One of the things that I think that people have come to rely on is kind of these chat communication tools. So I think that one of the ways that I have found and made sure that my team kind of levels up in general for that is saying, look, I know we can do, you know, a Slack app to do like daily scrums, but let's not do that every day. Let's actually talk. Let's chat. Let's do a video chat. Everybody enable their video, kind of like similar to here, where like people should be able to see each other and kind of see each other's emotions. Another one is I have a lot of remote employees, but we make sure to like actually meet up at least like once a year, or I'll go to somewhere where they're at. Like I recently went to an engineer that I had worked with for 5 years and had never actually met in person. But it felt like natural. It felt like, you know, like we were friends because we constantly, you know, talk on video and stuff like that. But I think having those things be more formal is important. I think that we all get caught up with productivity and not wanting to waste time and so on. So I always try to make sure that we have at least some face time.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. And thank you to today's speaker for today's really thoughtful and interesting discussion. As always, the presentation will also be posted to our SlideShare channel. A big thank you from me, Nis Fromm, and thank you to everyone who took the time to participate and learn from these talks today as part of the Product Mentor program. Don't forget, if you're interested in being a product mentor like today's speaker, you can reach out and to product people of all sorts all around the world. Visit theproductmentor.com and sign up today, both as a mentor and as a mentee. If you're looking to fill a new product job with a great product person, if you're hiring, visit our free-for-all job board at theproductjobs.com. And finally, one last request, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel. See everyone next time.